Lacrosse Legends. Lacrosse Legends, a comprehensive look at America's greatest game, featuring legends past, present, and future.
Today on Lacrosse Legends, we visit with Harlem Jets Lacrosse. Harlem Jets Lacrosse, a program dedicated to helping youth reach their full potential through participation in academic enrichment and learning the creator's game, the game of lacrosse. Headed by Coach Alex Coombs and Coach Tim Heckman. Lacrosse Legends visited the gentleman at the About You facility in Queens, New York.
About You Outreach is a nonprofit organization with our slogan and our whole mission is to empower student athletes to own their future.
And we emphasize two major things, our core services, and that's providing academic intervention and physical preparation, aka strength and conditioning, health and wellness.
Through that, we use sports and starting at a youth level, use sports to kind of be the carrot on a stick where, hey, we're going to get you integrated and into our sports program and into any sports program in the school and in the city that you are interested in. But in order to be successful in sports, you also have to be successful in the classroom. So our huge component is academics first, sports second, and training integrates that. So you become a health and wellness fanatic with promoting health and wellness within the community, amongst your friends, amongst your families. And then we also go into the classroom using standardized test prep, using math, reading, and writing to empower them in the classroom.
Using sports and not letting sports use you. Leveraging whatever God-given ability you have from a physical standpoint, and how does that turn into something that turns into a career? Are you using football or lacrosse, for example, to become a finance major pre-law, or are you following the same steps that historically the athletic model is, and that's to take kids who have these gifts and put them in majors that are going to equate to no real opportunities post-graduation. So leveraging sports, that's our niche, to get kids to think of other things like career.
Because how are you going to get into college if you don't have that educational component? How are you going to start a business? How are you going to be an entrepreneur? How are you going to be a lawyer, be a doctor without that educational component?
The eventual goal of bringing that back into the community. Because the idea in that is to create a self-sustaining ecosystem, and that only happens if communities like Harlem, the South Bronx, have lawyers, have doctors, have judges. And that can happen through sport, because the first hurdle is to get to college in the first place. Sports provides that outlet, use it. That's something that we harp on at About You.
So we try to develop the whole student athlete, not just the athlete part, not just the student part, embody the entire human being here at About You. Harlem Jets was founded in 2005 by Jamel Wright, mostly as a football program. And then Coach Alex and myself, back in April of 2021, we wanted to bring another non-traditional sport into New York City. And that non-traditional sport was lacrosse. We serve student athletes from ages 5 to 14. And what we really thought was really important was getting sticks in the hands of young kids from Harlem, from the Bronx, from Brooklyn, from Manhattan, from all New York City. We even had a little girl who was traveling from New Jersey over the George Washington Bridge on Saturdays because their parents entrusted us and they wanted their child to be within the community, within kids that looked like them, picking up a new sport for the first time. And with this sport, we embody challenging kids, because the hardest thing to do is the first thing that they learn, which is scooping up a ball off the ground. You'll see them, they're shoveling it across the ground, they're not doing it, and they're getting frustrated, and our coaches are really great, and they're like, hey, it's okay, try, do this. They try to show them methods, and then the first win is that first day of practice where they can actually scoop it up, and it's like, hey, you just did one of the hardest things in lacrosse, is you picked it up off the ground without your hands. So we try to teach kids that failure is okay. Failure is part of the process. A lot of kids right now are all about success, 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 but really they forget failure has to happen first, and then you create great strides. And lacrosse is such a great opportunity to teach that life lesson, because that could be applied to life in all aspects, relationships, family, education, everything. You're gonna fail, and it's okay to fail as long as you learn and you use people around you, you use your teammates, you use your support structure to then move forward and learn how to succeed. And with Harlem Jets Lacrosse, we try to use not just lacrosse as the platform to have kids learn about themselves and learn teamwork and learn commitment and learn community. It's just kind of the introduction to what we also offer. We started recently a rock climbing initiative where now it's not a team sport, now it's, hey, can you challenge yourself, learn resiliency, learn perseverance, and also health and wellness to climb up a wall. And we do a grade monitoring process where a lot of our kids are in elementary school, so they get actual paper report cards still. So we collect those paper report cards, we see how they're doing. If kids have online learning management systems and software, we check that on a weekly basis and talk to our parents and let them know just that, hey, this is their strength, this is where they can grow, so on and so forth. So we really just try to create an entire community around using the sport of lacrosse, but it's so much more than lacrosse.
I know you've had a lot of success with Harlem Jets football. Are you noticing any players having any interest in lacrosse?
Oh, absolutely. It's plain and simple, right? The same athletic attributes that are necessary to be successful in lacrosse are the same things that you need in terms of being successful on the gridiron. An example of that would be Jim Brown, right? Jim Brown, superior football player and an amazing lacrosse player. Unfortunately, because of the lack of access to lacrosse, the community doesn't really understand that aspect. For us, our kids have had a great transition into lacrosse. The agility, the strength, the speed, the hand-eye coordination, it's been great. And in fact, our kids who are not, let's say, your 1 or 2 kid at football now has found a home in lacrosse.
Next on Lacrosse Legends. You're watching Lacrosse Legends.
You had success as a lacrosse coach in the past. Won championships, you got quite a few accomplishments under your belt. Do you ever miss the competition of being on the sideline?
Absolutely. Our youth organization, we haven't even played a single game yet. All spring, summer, and fall, we were just focused on developing, and getting buy-in from the parents and from the kids. We didn't want to sell to parents, hey, we're going to be playing games, we're going to go out to Long Island, we're going to go to Westchester, we're going to go to Baltimore, Philadelphia, and we're going to play these teams that have been around for decades and decades and decades, and then we just get kicked apart potentially, and then that can lead to kids losing interest, losing focus. But also after our Juneteenth Expo, we got a whole influx of kids that were brand new in the fall, and it was like, well, we can't really then just throw them into games when we still need to develop and create this discipline, create this love of the sport through playing little intramural games and practices and stuff. So all of 2021, we were just focused on, okay, let's get kids here. Kids are walking by, we have extra lacrosse sticks here, just come in, let's just try it out, see how you like it after day one. Let's get the families involved and have them watch and have them excited and enjoying what they're seeing their children doing. And that's really what we were focused on. So the high school coach, the ex-high school coach in me is like, oh, I want to compete, I want to compete, I want to compete. But the bigger mission is, no, let's develop, let's create a community first, and competition and winning is gonna come after you develop those children. So high school, I was at a school in the South Bronx called Cardinal Hayes for 6 years. I was the assistant coach and then I became the head coach. We won a championship. We were only a varsity program, so we didn't have a JV level. And every year, new kids would try out for the squad because we could have 25 to 30 kids based on the jerseys and helmets. And there would be so much potential. There would be, wow, there's this 12th grader that's just trying out for the first time. Huge, normally football kid. I could think of Jalen Edgehill off the top of my head as a 12th grader my first year. Huge football kid, about 6'3", D end, super tough. And he's picking up a long pole. If he had picked up a long pole, or if he had just picked up a lacrosse stick when he was 10 years old, who knows where he could have taken himself. So I left Cardinal Hayes. I hooked up with Coach Alex, the other co-director who's been with the Harlem Jets for 13 years. And we had a vision like, hey, we need to bring lacrosse, we need to create opportunities through the sport of lacrosse in New York City for kids and for a community that traditionally haven't had that opportunity, whether it was them being outpriced, whether it's just not accessible in terms of the times or the days. We need to be that service, because if it's not done, then it'll just continue the narrative and nothing will get done. So missing the competitiveness, yes. In the short term, yes. I know it's going to come, and I think the youth level is going to be way more competitive with what's going to happen with what we're going to be doing with lacrosse, with our girls and our boys. I think that was another aspect of why I wanted to leave high school, because it was just boys. Now we get to empower and watch our girls try out lacrosse for the first time, and that's been a home run. That makes me really excited to see where they're going to take themselves.
Next on Lacrosse Legends. You're watching Lacrosse Legends.
With your experience in the world of concussions, one thing I've noticed on the sideline, the girls' lacrosse game, they don't like wearing helmets. What's your thoughts about that?
A little disappointed, given all the information that we have from places like the CDC, some of our brightest minds in terms of health and wellness, MDs. It's clear that protecting the head and the neck area is imperative, essential. And so for the girls' game not to have that clear understanding environment where they can have things like a full guarded helmet, not goggles, or just a headband of some sort, it's really disappointing. It's quite frankly, it's something that is a passion of mine in terms of breaking that down. I really don't understand the disconnect as it relates to protecting girls. The human skull is the same in both females and males. You're telling girls to compete at a high level but not have the same protections as the boys' game. And it's something that as a Harlem Jet program, we're going to fight, bring awareness to. Myself, my daughter is also involved in the Harlem Jets program. She loves lacrosse. And for me to see her in an environment that doesn't protect her, for me is something I'm not going to stand for. As a program, we're not going to stand for. We're going to try to create awareness and change in that environment.
So tell us about some of the biggest challenges for Harlem Jets lacrosse.
Resources. We lucked up with meeting Harry Jacobs, who's now the manager, the regional manager for USA Lacrosse in our area. Him and the Long Island Metro Lacrosse Foundation chapter, ran by Mike Nelson. We had an incredible opportunity to go out to Long Island where their storage shed is, and they were able to provide us with used sticks that a lot of the Long Island families had donated, and some of the new sticks as well. They helped us out with balls. They gave us some ideas on where we can get some goals. So right off the bat, we started out with used lacrosse sticks and stuff like that because we just didn't have the resources to start. But our kids ate it up. They loved it.
Bringing awareness to the inner city about the game of lacrosse. Given all of the access to lacrosse and information via social media, websites, internet, the inner city still has no clue what lacrosse is. If you go right now to Harlem and walk with a lacrosse stick, 9 times out of 10, parents are going to tell you they have no clue what that is. Is it hockey? Is it some sort of modified tennis game? So for me, in order to grow the game, we have to get to the community. That's where I see the disconnect within the lacrosse world. There's an assumption that the community knows, Black and Latino folks understand what lacrosse is, and they don't. So we have to break that barrier. We have to make it mainstream. Basketball and football understand this, and quite frankly, they leverage it, right? You get influencers such as folks in entertainment, things of that nature to kind of promote and bring awareness to it, and that's why it becomes something that is so recognizable within the inner cities. Lacrosse, there's some sort of wall that is blocking everyone from getting the kids who we're trying to get involved really understand what's going on. Resources, right? Being able to break through the lacrosse world by being able to have adequate equipment, coaching, access to capital, to travel to events. As I said, the biggest barrier for us is really trying to get the community to understand the beauty of the game of lacrosse?
So some of the successes with Harlem Jets Lacrosse, it's great. First would be just doing the free clinics that we would have in March to start to get kids involved. We did it after football practice. We had buy-in from the NYPD men's and women's lacrosse program, and they would come down a couple times during these free clinics. It was great for our kids and our families to see officers now in plain clothes who play lacrosse, that were being those empathetic people that they are, and that was an awesome thing. That was a great success. We could talk about our Juneteenth Youth Lacrosse Expo, the inaugural first year. We were lucked up with Donovan Dennis, who's the DE&I manager for USA Lacrosse, and Ebony Preston Laurent, they're both the managers, talked to us and introduced us to Kwesi, who's down in Baltimore and runs the Baltimore Terps. We then met AJ, who runs Warhorse LC in Philadelphia, and we came up with an idea where we're going to hold free USA Lacrosse Sankofa clinics in the morning, centered around Juneteenth, in Wagner Playground, right on 2nd Avenue. There's a lot of foot traffic. Our whole idea was to have the community see the sport of lacrosse and witness the sport of lacrosse for the first time in that area, right in East Harlem. We had over 200 girls and boys from New York City come. They got a free lacrosse stick, they got a free USA Lacrosse membership. We had outstanding coaches that traveled from Florida, from Baltimore. We had Tari, official Lax girl, who came and she coached. We had some gentlemen from California come out, Brendan Murphy. We had Team Puerto Rico's U19 women's coach come from Chicago, Coach Lugo. And then we had Courtney Dina come from Hofstra University. She was the field hockey coach, and she's really adamant about lacrosse. It was an all-star cast coming to East Harlem to coach our kids. And those networks and those connections have proved so valuable from a social media perspective, from a mentoring perspective for our kids and for our young coaches as well. And myself and Coach Alex, like, we're dealing with all-stars here in the lacrosse world that dedicate their time to teach kids and introduce kids to the sport of lacrosse. Seeing young black and brown children playing lacrosse at a super competitive level. And it's like, wow, lacrosse isn't just a white sport. I mean, it wasn't a white sport. It's a Native American sport, first off. You see what the Baltimore Terps and what the Warhorse are doing? Yeah, that's going to be you next year. We need to get our mindset focused, the skill set focused, and we need to challenge ourselves to be like that and to surpass, to be better, because we can be better.
So having teams from Baltimore, the entire Maryland area, Philadelphia, come together and show the community in Harlem, South Bronx, what high-level lacrosse looks like from a Black and Latino perspective. The world of lacrosse is very much a Caucasian-dominated arena, and it doesn't make sense given the history of lacrosse being something that was brought to us by the natives, some of the greatest athletes, as I said, Jim Brown. The fact that the community doesn't know that Jim Brown was a lacrosse legend is something that I really want to bring awareness to. The biggest win for us this year was being able to bring that major event in partnership with USA Lacrosse and some of our local partners, bring that to Harlem and the borough.
Why is youth football so big in America? They have leagues. They have AYF, they have Pop Warner. They play local, then they play regional, and then they play state, and then they go to championships, and there's something to play for. Lacrosse, youth lacrosse, there's nothing to play for. What, you pay $1,000 for a team, you go to these tournaments, these recruiting tournaments, and if you're not on the top 4 teams in the entire region, you're not getting looked at, but you're paying the same amount of money, right? And you're getting paid a premium depending on what, or like, that's got to end. How is lacrosse going to grow if we just follow that same model over and over and over again of, okay, we're going to be this elite travel club, and we're going to go to this college and this college and this college, okay, costs $2,000 for 6 weeks. Costs $1,000 for 4 weeks of what we're going to do. And there's only going to be 1 practice a week, and then we'll go and we'll play a game. Who is that helping? I've been to some of these tournaments and gotten stomped in almost all of the games. And the kids are just like, I think it's good, right? Like, failure is good, but if it's just consecutive, and there's no success, and also they're not getting looked at because they're not playing the elite program, so where all the eyes are, no, and there's nothing to play for then. So then what? You get discouraged and you leave, or you just pay the extra money and you go to that, or not even extra money, or you make that extra travel and you go to that elite program. So what? It's the haves versus the have-nots. And right now, New York City is the have-not, like, left behind. So how do we change that narrative? We get developing programs just like us, black and brown children, predominantly to start. We form this league. We play each other during the spring. Then we have playoffs. Then we have a championship, and we crown a championship. Fantastic. We have all of the eyes on us, on our league, on all of the kids. They're seeing what we're doing, and we promote all of the kids within all of the organizations. More eyes. There's this pride because you play playoffs and championships. And then we capstone it with our second annual Juneteenth event. More free clinics, more kids that try lacrosse for the first time. Invite, and we get all of our other connections from our neighboring states who want to travel, and we want to see what we're doing, and they want to play each other. Now we have more teams to be in that round robin tournament. That's growing the game. That is, not these elite recruiting tournament stuff. Like, that's growing the game maybe for the 1%. But for kids, for pride, for everybody, that's growing the game of lacrosse. And that's really our main intention for 2022. Let's get as many girls and boys, our children, families involved in what's going on here. And let's change the narrative. The narrative's got to stop. This isn't anything new. Like, Coach Alex and myself, we haven't invented the wheel here. So why hasn't anybody done this before? We're not millionaires. Like, what is stopping others from doing this, from starting something and actually trying to grow the game? Maybe the answer is nobody wants to. They're just status quo. But that's not our answer.
What we see as our future is essentially becoming somewhat of the Olympic training model, getting back to fundamental development at the early age. There's this instant gratification society that we live in. We often charge this with young people, but the reality is this is being pushed by adults. When you have 5-year-olds that you're ranking, when you have the 5th grader, he's the top 10 basketball player in the country, you're pushing young people to specialize early and avoid the foundation of fundamentals. And now when you have a 16, 17-year-old who's burnt out, or a family who has a bad experience with all those years, it lends itself to the dysfunction in the sport world, and in particular youth development. Our motto is fundamentals, a year-to-year approach, applying things that are appropriate when it makes sense, and then just providing young people and families a support system that is true in what the actual meaning of all of this is, and that's using sport and not letting sports use kids. We would love to see our program expand to every city, specifically cities that are in dire need. A passion of mine, Detroit, Chicago, Charlotte. These are areas that I have visited personally, and it kills me to hear some of the statistics that deal with our communities. And if sport is something that can go in there and provide an outlet, it's not the only outlet, but sport, education, mentorship is something that we're super passionate about. And when we get that opportunity, we want to see a satellite camp in almost every city. It's a pride in where you are, right? I'm born and raised in Harlem. I love Harlem. Harlem Renaissance, the history of Harlem, what it means for all people. Harlem has always provided a pride for Black and Latino folks. So I would want to spread that through the city, having a Detroit Jets, a Charlotte Jets, a Patterson City Jets, Compton Jets, create pride within your area, and then ultimately come together knowing that we're one big Jet family and realizing that we have the same mission and vision across the United States.
So we have our website, harlemjetslacrosse.org. On social media, we have our Instagram, we have our Facebook, we have our Twitter, which is @HarlemJetsLacrosse. or Twitter is Harlem Jets Lax because you can't fit the word lacrosse. And just continue to follow our journey as we try to grow the game a little bit more and empower our New York City children.
Well, Coach Tim, thank you for having us at your facility. You have a great system. What you're doing is really sounding great. Much success to you. Lacrosse Legends will keep up with you, and we will follow up and see what's going on with Harlem Jets Lacrosse.
It's an honor that you were here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for shedding light to our program and in other programs. This is how it's going to get done.
This is Monsanto Muzak for Lacrosse Legends.